My brother told me not to show up unless I was useful. So, I showed up with proof. He forged my signature for a $600,000 loan. My brother texted, "Don't show up unless you've done something useful before Christmas." On the same day, my parents asked me to cover his loan. I sent 1 cent along with the comment, "Good luck, champ." A week later, he invited me to a peace dinner, stating, "Family should stick together." They all remained silent as I opened my luggage. The bank had just informed me that I had been listed on a 6-figure loan related to his new home. I said nothing but handed a folder across the table and added, "I assumed you'd want a copy." I stared at the message for a whole minute, attempting to understand it in only 10 words, but it felt like a slap. No context, just a passive-aggressive command disguised as brotherly advice. That same day, as I was still half laughing and half reeling from his audacity, my phone rang again. This time it was Mom. I didn't have to open the text to feel the change in my chest. I recognized that tone. "We need to speak softly before guilt-tripping you." Her message stated, "Sweetheart, your brother's mortgage payment is due. You stressed? Can you cover this month until he gets back on his feet?" I slumped back in my chair and stared at my cold cup of coffee. My brother Anil, the golden child who always finds a way to avoid responsibility, was once again in need. And once again it was up to me to assist. He had just purchased a new home 2 months earlier. Flashy, pricey, and far above his means. I knew it, as did our parents. And hey, even Anil knew it. But he wanted to brag to prove he was doing better than me. I accessed my banking app, scrolled down to my emergency fund account, and instead of sending him the $2,100 they had hinted at, I transferred exactly 1 penny with the comment, "Good luck, champ." The silence that followed was delightful. No phone calls. Angry texts. Nothing. A week later, Anil issued an invitation to a peace dinner. He said he wanted to make things right before Christmas. The family should keep together, he said. My parents shared the sentiment. Mom even utilized her forgiveness to provide the ultimate gift of the season. I did not respond right away. I needed to see how far this performance could go. So I showed up. The house was completely decked out with twinkling lights, candles, and Christmas platters. When I stepped in, everyone was already sitting and I was holding my old leather satchel, which I had never taken to family dinners. Anil opened the door himself. "Hey man, glad you came." His grin was wide, as if he'd already chosen how this night would finish, with a reconciliation scene for the family highlight reel. We sat. Small chat and uneasy smiles. Dad clinked a drink and made a statement about unity. I waited. Then, just as the turkey struck the table, I took the folder from my backpack. Cream-colored, thick, and silent. "I figured you'd want a copy," I explained, sliding it over the table. They all stared at it as if it was about to explode. It did not. However, the goods inside were a different story. I didn't have to explain what the folder was. The bank's fraud department emblem was prominently displayed on the first page. This is my name, my signature, but it wasn't mine. A 6-figure loan I never applied for, with the address linked to the mortgage, Anil's new home. The quiet struck like a bomb. Even Anil's twins stopped squirming. My father reached for his glasses, trembling, and opened the folder as if he didn't already know what was inside. Anil's smile faltered. "Wait, what is this?" "Oh, I think you know," I answered as cool as ice. My mother gasped as she flipped over the pages. "This must be a mistake. There's no way." "Anil, tell him this isn't." But Anil didn't say anything. He was staring at the papers, blinking as if he was attempting to turn them into something else. "This is a bank notification," I explained. "Apparently I co-signed on your mortgage. Except I didn't." Dad looked up. "That can't be. You must have signed something. Maybe you just forgot." I laughed. Forgot applying for a loan I never needed? Forgot signing away 6 figures in debt for a house I'd never live in? "Let me guess," I said, concentrating on Anil. "You used one of those old power of attorney documents Mom made me sign when she had her surgery. The one that was supposed to be temporary. The one you just happened to have a copy of?" Anil's mouth opened, closed. It was going to be temporary. I just needed help qualifying. The bank was being impossible and I thought. "You thought I wouldn't notice?" He leaned forward, frantic now. "I was going to fix it. I just needed to get approved. Once I refinanced, it was going to be in my name alone. I swear." "My signature was used without consent on official documents," I responded with a smile. That was when Dad slapped his hand against the table. "Stop it, both of you." His voice sounded like thunder. "This is Christmas. I don't care what happened. We're not going to do this here. Right?" I answered. Because we never do it here. We don't talk about how Anil has been leeching off me since we were teenagers. We don't talk about how you all act like I'm some Scrooge because I won't bankroll his every bad decision. My mom's lips were trembling. That's not fair, she whispered. Isn't it? I countered. Let me take you on a little walk down memory lane. I ticked them off with my fingertips. Freshman year of college, I dropped out because you asked me to help Anil pay off his car loan after he wrecked the one you bought him. 2 years later, I co-signed for his community college. He dropped out in a semester and left me with the debt. Then the time he got evicted. Who paid for that deposit? Who gave him a job at their company, only for him to steal from petty cash? Dad appeared to want to talk, but I did not give him the opportunity. And through all of it, you kept saying the same thing. He's your brother. He's just figuring it out. Be patient. Well, guess what? He's 34 now. How much longer does he get to figure it out, on my dime? Don't act like you're so perfect. Anil said abruptly, his voice rising. You always thought you were superior to everyone since you had your act together and didn't make mistakes. I turned to face him. I don't think I'm better. I just stopped expecting someone else to clean up after me. You don't understand pressure, Anil retorted. I had to show I could build something too. I needed this house. I needed to prove I wasn't just some loser. What you did may be considered fraudulent. No, I mean, he ran his hand through his hair. It's not like that. My mother attempted to grasp for my hand. We can fix this. Let's not ruin the holiday. Ruin it? I laughed cruelly. The holiday was already ruined the moment you all sat here pretending like nothing happened. Like he didn't ask me for money right after Anil told me not to come unless I was useful. Dad's jaw tightened. He didn't mean it like that. He was stressed. He meant it exactly like that, I said. And so did I when I sent him a penny. I turned to Anil. You have 30 days to remove my name from that loan. I've already contacted a lawyer in the bank. If you don't act, I will. And you leave me no choice but to act legally. I grabbed the folder, placed it back into my backpack and proceeded to the door. Nobody stopped me. Nobody said a thing. And thus, Christmas came to an end early. I didn't expect it to go this far. At first, I truly believed I could simply walk away and let them choke on their own guilt, if they had any. But you don't grow up in a family like mine without learning the patterns. Because 2 days later, the calls began. First it was, Mom, honey, can we talk? Your brother's going through a lot right now. Then, Dad, I think we need to sit down like men and sort this out. Then Anil. He had the guts to send me a video message of himself sitting in his half-decorated living room, phony tears in his eyes, drinking a glass of wine as if he were in a sad movie. Look, man, I made a mistake. I panicked. I thought you'd never say yes if I asked, and the bank was breathing down my neck. I was desperate. But it's still me, your brother. You'd really report me over this. I looked at the screen in bewilderment. Is this a mistake? You don't unintentionally fill out a multi-page mortgage application in another person's name and forge their signature. You don't mistakenly put your own family member in 6 figures of debt. He was performing his typical part as Anil, the misunderstood idealist, the guy who always had good intentions but never quite succeeded. And everyone always let him off. Except for me. Not anymore. So I replied with my own video. Come. Direct. There were no theatrics. I've already filed the legal issue report with the bank. They're opening a formal investigation. I've submitted handwriting samples, a timeline, and email evidence. You have 10 days to remove my name. After that, I escalate it legally. No more metaphors. No more, let's talk about it. Just facts. The situation became more serious at that point. They showed up at my apartment the following night. I heard a beating on the door before I switched off the television. I looked through the peephole and there they were, Anil, Mom, and Dad. I didn't open the door, so Dad shouted through it. This isn't the way a family handles things. That part made me laugh aloud. I actually had to cover my mouth. Mom's voice was next. Please, sweetie. We can't let this destroy the family. Then Anil responded. You're really going to ruin my life over some paperwork? You're not perfect either, you know? That did it. I opened the door. The 3 of them appeared to have just been caught stealing from a church donation box. I said nothing at first. I just stood in the hallway, cold air from outdoors stroking over my legs. I finally spoke. You already did destroy the family. I'm just acknowledging it. Dad stepped forward. Son, be reasonable. You want reasonable? I inquired. Let's talk about reasonable things. I took out my phone, tapped it a couple times, then held it up. This is the recording of Anil asking me not to show up unless I'd done something useful. Want to hear it again? Their faces moved, all three. And this, I added, switching to another app, is the email I received from the bank confirming the forgery. It's admissible. Anil was sweating now. Come on, man. We're brothers. I stared him in the eyes. Brothers don't steal from each other. Brothers don't lie. Brothers don't pull each other into financial messes like this and then try to make it sound like a misunderstanding. He opened his lips to speak, but I silenced him. You're going to walk to your car right now. You need to inform the bank about the issue and take steps to fix it. You're going to have them remove my name. And if I don't get a signed, notarized release form within 10 days, I go to the police. Mom gave a gasp. You wouldn't? He's your brother. Oh, I would. I'd sleep like a baby. You'll break this family, she sobbed. I tilted my head. There's nothing left to break. You just don't like seeing it shattered. And then I made the ultimate move. I reached into the envelope affixed to my doorframe and handed them a copy of my lawyer's certified notice, suing Anil for major mistakes and damages, including emotional anguish. You made adult choices. Now it's time to take responsibility. They stood there transfixed as statues. Then I closed and locked the door and proceeded to cook popcorn. That night, for the first time in years, I didn't grind my teeth. For the first time in years, my phone stopped ringing. No daily guilt trips from Mom. No gaslight voicemails from Dad regarding family values. Anil sent no text messages with passive-aggressive emojis or poor spelling. Just silence. And let me tell you something, stillness is addictive. At first, I was waiting for the other shoe to drop. Perhaps the police would call. Perhaps the bank would engage in some legal maneuvering and ensnare me in red tape. But none of that occurred. What actually happened was that Anil cracked on the 5th day after I sent the legal letter. I received a call, but it was not from him. He lacked the necessary courage. It came from his realtor. Apparently, Anil panicked and listed the house for sale. She nicely asked if I would be willing to sign a release of interest to help speed up the transaction. I told her I'd be pleased, as soon as Anil completed the notarized documentation to remove me from the loan. Fair trade. Within 24 hours, I received a PDF that had been notarized, signed, and stamped. A clean break. I was out. But that was not the true victory. The true victory came when Dad arrived at my office. Yeah. He didn't phone or text. He just sauntered in one afternoon as if he owned the place and looked approximately 20 years older than I had seen him before. I was in the middle of a customer meeting. My assistant attempted to stop him, but he pushed past and barged into the room. Son, we need to talk. The client blinked. Should I? I nodded. Take 5. Dad shut the door behind him and stared around my office as if it were an exotic world, as if he had suddenly learned his youngest son had accomplished something worthwhile. Didn't know you had this setup, he remarked, looking at the shelves. Looks professional. It is professional. He nodded but did not sit down. Your mother's not doing well. Oh, there it was. The sympathetic angle. She's upset, he added. I think you've gone too far. We all do. I remained mute. He continued going. Anil is talking about moving out of state. Says you've poisoned the family against him. I haven't spoken to a single relative about what happened, I said. If they're turning against him, that's his doing. Dad finally exhaled. He's still your brother. He crossed a serious line. Flinched. We raised you better than this, he stated softly. You used to be forgiving. No. I used to be weak. There's a difference. Once again there is silence. Then he leaned forward. She cried. You know your mother. Real tears. I bet she did. After all, it's hard, watching the family start standing up for myself. He looked up. I was tired. You're angry. I was. Now I'm free. He stood slowly. We were trying to hold things together. No. You were trying to hold me together so Anil didn't have to carry anything. And then I finally spoke what I had been meaning to say for years. I'm not your insurance policy. Not your second paycheck. Not your plan B. I'm your son, and you treated me like a resource. He didn't respond. He just looked at me as if he had seen a ghost. I'm not coming back, I explained. I'm done playing the good son. He went without saying anything further, and something inside of me breathed. Weeks have passed. My lawyer approved a non-disparagement provision to prevent Anil from publicly posting sob stories on social media. The post he made about being betrayed by family disappeared overnight. I heard through the grapevine that the house sold, just barely. The market had cooled. He suffered a loss. Then followed the messages. Aunt Faith says, I had no idea what he did to you. If you ever want to grab coffee, I'd love to catch up. My other aunt responded, just know not everyone believed his version. I hope you're doing okay. Even my ex texted, took guts to do what you did. I never saw that strength in you before. I did not answer the majority of them, but I did grin. Because that's what happens when you stop playing the villain in someone else's redemption tale, and begin crafting your own. I moved to a new location. Not far away, the same city, but with more light, large windows, clean walls. There are no ghosts from the past lurking in the corners. I purchased new furniture, not secondhand. I have not borrowed from my parents, not blessed with 1,000 strings attached. What? All of it. I began sleeping better. Eating healthier. My therapist even said that I appeared lighter. And here's the crazy part, I started mentoring a neighborhood kid. Smart, awkward, perhaps a touch overly eager to please. I was reminded of myself at that age. One afternoon, after I completed working on his resume, he looked up and said, "How do you get so good at boundaries?" I laughed. I spent 30 years learning the hard way. But do you want to know the true full circle moment? Last week, I received a wedding invitation. Not Annal's, God no. It came from one of his ex-girlfriends. He ghosted a woman 3 years ago after she told him she was pregnant. Turns out the kid was his. It turns out that she reared that child alone. She discovered me on LinkedIn. The message contained the following. You were always the decent one. Thank you for never treating people like tools. You probably don't remember it, but when I stayed for dinner that night, you did the dishes while he watched TV. That moment stuck with me. I wasn't sure what to say, so I didn't say anything. I sat there holding the card, letting the tranquility pour over me. Because the truth is, I won. Not with vengeance. Not while shouting. Not by burning bridges. But they walked away while still holding the matches. I used to believe that being the good one was the aim. Keep your head down. Help when asked. Do not complain. Do not question. Just keep on giving until someone expresses gratitude, or you feel deserving. That falsehood ended the day I mailed Annal a dime. I've spent the majority of my life carrying obligations I didn't create, paying for decisions I didn't make, and absorbing blame like an emotional sponge for a family that never inquired how I was doing. And for what? Respect? Well, belonging? I received none of those. What I received was a fake mortgage application, a holiday guilt trip, and a place at a table where everyone knew I was being duped but said nothing. Not anymore. Not again. Something changed about a minute after I said no. It wasn't simply how people viewed me. It was in how I viewed myself. I stopped apologizing for having limitations. I stopped second-guessing my instincts. I stopped trying to rescue those who would abandon me to drown as soon as it became inconvenient. Something unusual happened. The weight lifted. I literally lost 20 pounds in 3 months, without trying. My shoulders have ceased aching. My jaw stopped clenching when I slept. It turns out that carrying a full family's dysfunction on your back is far heavier than it appears. I began rebuilding both financially and personally. The apartment is basic but peaceful. I chose each item within it with purpose. No hand-me-downs. There's no guilt furniture. Nothing was bought with blood money or bribes. I bought a tiny espresso machine because I enjoy coffee, not because someone told me I needed to cut back to pay for their bailout. I joined a boxing gym, not to fight someone but to remember what it is like to stand firm. People gradually began to show up, the correct ones. My neighbor invited me to dinner with his family. I felt awkward at first, waiting for some questions and angles. But there wasn't one. Simply delicious food and laughs. One of my coworkers gave me a Christmas card and remarked, "You've been different lately. Lighter. Happier. I hope it's permanent." I said, "Me too." My family went quiet for a spell. The calls began to trickle in. Mom began with her quiet voice, which she employs when she wants to pretend nothing has happened. She asked if I wanted to come to Easter brunch. I asked if Annal would be there. She replied, "Of course." I replied, "Then I won't." Then Dad called. He said he missed me. They said the house felt empty without me. I asked if he missed me, or the version of me who never said no. He hung up. Annal never called. But I learned through the grapevine that he moved in with a buddy once the house was sold. He created a podcast about repairing your life after betrayal. The irony almost killed me. Finally they stopped calling. The silence became a blessing. But the true ending is the one that sticks with me the most. It was a random Wednesday. Rain tapping on my balcony. I was reading when a letter came through my postal slot. There was no return address. I opened it. Inside there was only one page. Type. "You accomplished what I never could. You said no." You walked away. You showed the rest of us what was possible. Thank you. No name. But I recognized who it was. My cousin. Maybe my aunt. Even one of Annel's exes. Someone still imprisoned in that poisoned orbit, witnessing my escape and realizing they too could. I gently folded the letter and placed it in the drawer where I preserve reminders of who I used to be. Then I poured myself a drink. Not to celebrate, but to remember. Because mending doesn't imply forgetting what they did to you. It is about no longer requiring them to admit it. It is about no longer begging for affection that should have been given unconditionally. It's about becoming the person you were born to be once you stop bleeding for everyone else. I used to believe that the worst thing that could happen was being cut off from my family. Now I see that not cutting the cord would have been the worst-case scenario. Now I live the truth. And the fact is simple. I'm not their wallet. I'm not theirs at all. I belong to myself. And I'll never go back. Not for money. Not for peace. Not for remorse. I closed the chapter, without looking back.